So another episode here. Pretty sure it's episode 7. This is what I put down. And the idea here of being always supported by existence. This is absolutely fundamental to understanding life. And it's only when you begin to accept that you're always supported that you can truly begin to live. Because if you don't accept that there's a level of support to some degree, and everyone is to some degree accepting that they are supported, but the more you realize that, the less you live in the survival mode and the less you live in the world of having to do things. And it's fascinating going through this journey and really being presented with the opportunity to fully accept it and embrace it, because there's a lot of fear-based beliefs in my own mind, in the collective mind, that we experience as human beings when we just realize like everything that we need is here. And that doesn't mean that we don't do anything. Sometimes, and I think quite often, there's this idea in the law of attraction circles or spiritual circles. Even in A Course in Miracles, it's written that I need do nothing. I need do nothing. And of course, if that's taken out of context, then it's misunderstood. And a lot of things are taken out of context. That's part of the human challenge. In fact, virtually every human being is dealing with that on a daily basis in some way, shape, or form, because they're dealing with their own stories or perceptions about the world, about what reality actually is versus what their perceptions of it are. And when you get in tune with what reality truly is, greater and greater to greater and greater degrees, then it becomes much easier to know exactly what you need to do when you need to do it. And so the idea that I need do nothing is kind of coming from a place of scarcity, like I have to do something in order to survive. It's not really true. But it feels that way if you're living in that belief system. And that's fundamentally important to understand. Just because something seems like it's real for you doesn't mean it's real. And when people hear that, they don't get it because they've been living in a fishbowl. And if you are born into a fishbowl and you live in a fishbowl and no one ever says, hey, there's a whole other world outside of this fishbowl, then they just don't know what they don't know. And often, like this allegory of the cave story created by Plato, when people are exposed after for so many years or decades living with a certain mindset, and now they're exposed to something totally foreign to them, there's an awakening process. And that's part of what this support system is all about. Understanding that you're truly supported by existence in every way, mind, body, and spirit. There's an awakening to that. And there's a letting go of fear in that process. And if you think about it, like all the stress that goes on, whether it's in your chest, your digestive system, your solar plex area, it's in that core of your body. And the more you just recognize that you are in fact always supported, just in knowing that and accepting that, there's a level of relaxation that takes place. And the mastery of it is to know that you're not necessarily going to see that support externally. It does already exist physically, but you may not see it right away because you have to get into the vibration to perceive it first. And I'm thinking right now, and I think in one of these movies, maybe What the Bleep Do We Know, they give an example of when Europeans first came to North America, or not first came, but in the documented occasion when they first came. And there's a story, whether this is true or not, who knows, but it's a good analogy, where the natives to the land of North America didn't actually see these ships on the horizon, and whether they saw something in its place or nothing at all. But the idea was that they didn't perceive exactly what it was because it was foreign to them. And so the idea that you're always supported is foreign to you. If you're listening to this, that is a fact. It's foreign to you because you're a human being. Now, you may have reached a certain level where you accept that, God is an all-giving, all-loving being, and everything is provided for from that source power. You likely have your own relationship with that understanding to some degree. But those that truly understand it, that would be the definition of like full master, full enlightenment, where you know that God is your only source and it's all you need. So if you're watching this, you're on that journey. You're obviously a spiritual seeker, however you identify with that idea, and tapping into that knowingness. And that's obviously what I cover on my Phoenix Rising Masterclasses every Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, as well as in the Quantum Elite community with my Quantum Goal Activation class on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern. So you have a lot of opportunities to tap in to experiencing what it's like to be supported by all that is. And that's a frequency that you tune into. And I want to talk about tuning into the frequency. And I want to talk about the idea of the importance of that. Because a lot of people believe that they have to clear things before they can experience the positivity. And you could look at it that way. And that's certainly one approach. And it's certainly an approach that I've explored for many years. And through that, I've come to realize that there's really nothing to clear. There's no blocks necessarily to be removed, as is discussed or promoted in the spiritual circles. Prophesized, I was going to say, not sure if that's an actual word or not, but it's prolific, the idea that there's blocks to remove. It says in A Course in Miracles, is all about removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And I think that's more of a metaphor because, again, some of these spiritual teachings that are potentially very high level are then being read by someone that may not have a full understanding of it, and then it's misunderstood or misconstrued or miscommunicated. So the idea here is that you don't have to remove blocks. You could certainly move blocks. If there's a block in front of you, you could certainly move it. You could certainly transcend it. You could certainly step over it. But I think a lot of these are just metaphors to actually matching the frequency of the state of being that you prefer. Because suddenly something that appeared as a block or obstacle can actually be seen as a stepping stone. And that's what it is. That's the purpose that it's serving. So when you start to see these things and you start to look at all your fear-based beliefs, and we're entering a brand new reality, a brand new world, post-COVID, the opportunities that may have existed in the past for work may not exist anymore, or they exist differently. And more we're transitioning into this age of the solopreneur, the contractor, the freelancer. And that's really the way. And it's the new reality. And so that's a transition to make. And a lot of people are going through that right now. And whether you're a coach or you have a specific skill set in, that's more technical, graphics or anything of that nature that has to do with technology or computers. I mean, essentially everything's done online. Even things that were traditionally totally against online are now being moved online because they had to. So this experience with COVID has actually accelerated humanity's growth and really is in the long run creating a greater sense of unity, which will be seen more and more in the coming months and years. And so the idea here is when you realize that all of this is happening for us, it's all happening through us collectively. We've agreed. For many of us, it's an unconscious agreement, but we've agreed to have this experience. And what does that mean? Well, it means you can't be a victim. When I talk about you've unconsciously agreed to this, on some level, you knew that this is exactly what you needed to create for yourself in order to grow. Otherwise, you wouldn't be experiencing it. You don't create things in your life to hold you down, to suppress you, to beat you up, to suffer through. You don't. Sometimes consciously, when you resist it, it creates those effects, but they're effects. They're not the cause, and they're not even true. And the more you're honest with yourself about being supported all the time, how do you know that you're supported? Because you exist. You exist in this moment, therefore you're supported. That's as simple as you need to be with it. There's no deep understanding. It's like there's oxygen here supporting you. You understand that, right? Right? All the elements required for your growth are here. Now, you can choose to hold them away from yourself. You can choose to not feel supported. But even the fact that you can choose to not feel supported demonstrates that you are supported enough to make that decision to not feel supported. So allow yourself to just tune into that frequency and accept that you are always supported every moment. And I'm talking financially, I'm talking physically, I'm talking with all the external things required for your body to function. I'm talking practically. Embody that, just get a glimpse of it. Just acknowledge it for a moment, even if it only lasts a moment. It's a moment longer than what you had previous. And by putting yourself in the arena of transformation, where you acclimate your mind to fully embrace these ideas, fully accept these facts, the fact that you're always supported, such as in my master classes, then more and more that'll become your reality. And you're going to be confronted with fear-based beliefs. It's not to say that it has to be a smooth journey. It is a smooth journey when you let go of resisting, but you might be resisting, and that's okay too. You can still take the journey. Just because there's resistance there doesn't mean you can't move forward. But you can utilize that resistance to say, hey, what do I believe about myself to be true in order for me to be having this resistance? Like, why? Right? Was it true all along that I needed to do things that I didn't want to do in order to survive in this world? You know, as a lot of us are conditioned. Does that make sense? What's the point of that? Some people say that's just life. That's their life, the life that they've chosen to live through that lens, but it doesn't have to be yours. And the more you speak your truth, the more you follow your passion, the more you're honest with yourself about your belief systems, because you can't just jump into this stuff either, right? That idea of just jumping and growing wings, well, that's one approach, but it may not be your approach. And some approaches are just too threatening to our belief constructs. So we need a softer approach, a more shallow approach at the beginning, at the forefront. And then it gets deeper as you go, because you get acclimated to the water. You start off in the shallow end and work your way into the deep end. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with any approach. Wherever you're at in life is perfect, because you're an infinite being. And you're just playing this role at this time. This is who you are. You were an Academy Award-winning actor choosing to play the role of you, and you're doing a great job, and everyone around you is doing the same thing, and they're doing a great job. And if you just understand that people are being exactly the way they need to be, then that's perfect. And just allow them to be that way. And if it annoys you at times, I mean, you can always express that to people. You can always tell them that something's not working for you, that a boundary is potentially being crossed, or the way they're behaving or communicating is not the way that you like to. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with the way they are doing it, but if they're going to be part of your world, then, you know, let's see if we can find a different way to approach this. And if they're not willing to do it, then you just move on. There's no point in hanging on to people that are not supporting you, not supporting the way that you prefer to live. What's the point of that? If you're not promoting your growth and they're holding you back and holding you in a stuck position, you're allowing them to. You don't need to continue that. At any point in time, you can drop things. And sure, if you've had certain agreements or commitments, you want to look at those and say, hey, how do I maintain my integrity while navigating this so that it's complementary for everyone from a soul perspective? What's complementary for some people, they may not recognize it as being complementary for them initially or ever consciously. But you know you're doing the right thing when you feel that relief, that sense of relaxation in what you're doing, knowing, hey, you know what, I just lifted a burden from myself because I'm no longer having to have this interaction. I'm no longer having to spend thought power on it or focus on it. And there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your approach to things. It's finding that platform of support for your approach. And if you have people in your life that don't see it that way or are not in alignment with your approach to having support in your life, then just find other people. They're just vibrations. And that sounds kind of harsh, I guess, in a sense, because it's like, no, they're human beings. And of course they're human beings. They're people. But they're playing their roles, and a lot of them have a lot of programming going on to a degree. And it's your job to discern, hey, is this someone I can align with or not? Is their frequency in alignment with mine? If it's not, you know, that phrase of like trying to make a pig sing, you waste your time and you annoy the pig, right? And I'm not calling people pigs, it's just a metaphor, right? So you just consider this. It's all about you. It's all about what you're experiencing. It's all about your state of being. And if you're creating situations for yourself where people are provoking you or irritating you, then look at the reasons why you're creating those situations. Why are you putting yourself in a position where you're forced to have those types of people around you? You don't have to do that. And it's also a phase. It's also a growing up. It's also a level of maturing. So you can't insist that things change overnight. You can't insist that things stay the same. The only thing that you can know fundamentally is that whatever you're experiencing is perfect for you, perfect for your growth. And allow things to change as they need to. And allow the people in your life to change as they need to. And be honest with yourself and say, hey, maybe I don't need to maintain this circumstance any longer, despite all the levels of security that it seemed to give me, if I'm just fundamentally supported just for existing, which is absolutely true. And sure, you could come up with a lot of ideas or arguments against that, but why? Why argue against that? Why not look at the reasons why it's true? Why not look at the reasons why it's a fact? Right? And if you don't exist in a body, well, you continue to exist in consciousness. So even if your body withers away because it no longer has the oxygen it needs, or the water, or the food, or the shelter, or the love, the connection, then your consciousness exists in another form anyway. So just because you always exist and you're always supported doesn't mean that it has to be in a body, but simultaneously, you'll be in a body as long as you need to be. You can't end that any sooner. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other things you could say that might contradict that, but let's just kind of stay on the point here of you being supported. And everything is happening at the perfect time. When it's your body's time to die, then that's the perfect time for it to happen. However it happens, whenever it happens. Seems like a touchy subject, perhaps, but it's still all perfect. Your time to take a breath of fresh air. You're doing it at the perfect time. And if you, at one point, maybe learn to breathe more effectively, you're learning to do that at exactly the right time. You're drinking water at exactly the right time. It's all happening at exactly the right time. It's not random. It's perfect. And the more you see life through the lens of perfection, the more things complete themselves. The more things become integrated. So I encourage you to look at your life from the platform of support, knowing that you are supported and knowing that to the best of your ability and acting in your life in that way. If you were truly always supported at all times and scarcity wasn't true, not in the world, not in the spiritual realm, not in any realm, and that your vibrational state of being empowers you to align with the version of reality that is best for you in this moment, what would you do different? How would you respond different? Would you think different? Would you let go of some of that fear and anxiety that you harbor at times? Right? Would you let go of a fear of missing out? Would you let go of that sense of urgency that things need to be done right now? Can you just allow yourself to know what you need to know when you need to know it and allow yourself to take action on it as needed? So consider these platforms of support that are inherent to you, your natural state. And of course, during my masterclass this Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be tapping into this at an even deeper level. And I'll be actually launching a new one-on-one program, which can also be done as a group program, which I'm just putting together. It's over 5 phases or 5 activations. And it's quite exciting. And I'll have more details to reveal about that as well. I'm excited to participate in your reality. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself. And I look forward to staying in touch with you. Bye for now.